Deputy Speaker, I have attached copies of the content posted on social media by a woman living in Katukurunda, Kalutara that violated my parliamentary privileges.
ජනය විසින් සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ඔස්සේ තබා ඇති සටහන්වල පිටපත් කීපයක් මේ සමග ගරු නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි අමුණලා තියෙනවා. වැඩවලන පොලිස්පති
It reprimands myself and acting IGP Deshabandhu Tennakon, branding us both as rogues and that we need to be arrested. Such comments can, at times, pose a threat to our lives. My parliamentary privileges have been violated and I request the said person be summoned to the Committee on Privileges.
මාගේ වරප්‍රසාද කඩවී ඇති බැවින් ඉහත ලිපිනේ පදිංචි ට වරප්‍රසාද කමිටුව වෙත ගෙන්වන ලෙස මම මේ ගරු සභාවට ගරු නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි යෝජනා කරනවා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මම ඔබතුමාට කියනවා මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ
If any person is insulting any of the 225 MPs in Parliament, including the opposition leader, we must stand against it. If not, there will be no use of passing legislation like the Online Safety Act. Your proposal will be directed to the Speaker for appropriate action.
Dr. Harini Amarasuri, a Member of Parliament from the Jathika Janabalavagia, took aim at the Online Safety Act today, alleging that it is used by politicians, highlighting its use by politicians to suppress public criticism.
It is clear that the ruling elite is afraid of the barrage of questioning from the public with regard to the social contract between both sides. The Online Safety Act, the Anti-Terrorism Bill are being used to suppress dissent. Their call is to suppress criticism and questioning and jeering. That should not be the case, but saying so exhibits fear.
At the US Senate, the issues of parents and kids were discussed and an apology was made. In the last year alone, countries like UK, Germany, Singapore passed online safety legislation. Every single country is moving in that direction. Developed nations are accepting regulation, but you are not. That is because you will be unable to spread lies and sling mud.
In a press conference, Elizabeth M. Allen, the United States Undersecretary for Diplomatic Affairs, addressed the recent appearance of social media company heads before a US Senate committee.
So, as you know, the United States has continued to engage with the leaders of tech companies, of social media companies, to ensure that their policies, that their terms of service, that their new platforms are taking into account the very real societal effects that their platforms are having on people both in the United States and around the world. We're keenly aware that global audiences are using these platforms and they take increasing responsibility for what their platforms might mean if they are particularly misused in societies around the world. And I can tell you that the State Department takes the feedback of and the engagement with tech companies as a critical part of our own diplomacy with the private sector, including the tech companies.
Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy Elizabeth M. Allen voiced specific concerns about the Online Safety Act, stating that the United States has raised them both privately and publicly. She noted that attempting to conceal issues rather than addressing them is akin to hiding a broken tool rather than fixing it. Sri Lanka's Public Security Minister responded to the claims made by the US Undersecretary.
The Undersecretary had not read this properly to comment on it. She is just making a comment on what she hears. Her statement noted the need to look into the amendments. A leader in the opposition also spoke to me recently and I asked him to point out the anti-democratic clauses in the Act. He could not respond. Say the correct thing and then criticize the government and myself using the correct facts. Then there is no issue.
Leading tech companies under the Asia Internet Coalition, including Google, Meta and Amazon, have reiterated their concerns about the recently passed Online Safety Act in Sri Lanka. Before the Act's passage, the Asia Internet Coalition sent a letter to the Public Security Minister outlining proposed amendments. The Act passed without incorporating the proposed changes, despite promises of subsequent revisions. The Act remains inactive due to the absence of a designated commission and implementing regulations 21 days after its signing by the Speaker.
The Online Safety Act was passed in this House in an arbitrary manner. The recommendations of the Supreme Court were ignored. If those shortcomings are not addressed, we will be compelled to move a no-faith motion against the Speaker. The Attorney General advised Minister Tiranalas to incorporate the suitable recommended amendments. The remaining amendments are not taken at the committee stage. It is to be introduced as fresh amendments by producing it to the Cabinet and obtaining approval. Accordingly, Minister Tiranalas presented the proposed amendments to the Cabinet a fortnight ago and it was approved to be sent to the legal draftsman. Once it is received, it will be sent to the Attorney General for a certificate on constitutionality and then it is sent back to the Cabinet. This is a half-baked bill. We argued that the bill be introduced afresh given the volume of Supreme Court amendments. That should have been the ideal move. That is a policy-based decision of the government or the minister.